Morant with a running start. Elevates. Oh, it dunks. Oh, my goodness.
Tie game in overtime. Gasol will turn. His heave is gone. Memphis on top. 7-10 remaining.
Conley now with three. Count it. A 15-point lead for Memphis. And Blake Griffin gets into it on the floor with Randolph. Hard to tell if there are any punches being thrown under there, but Griffin took acceptance.
Adams going long. Morant. He hit it. John Morant. Insanity.
You gotta be kidding me.
Welcome to Grits and Grinds, a Memphis Grizzlies podcast. Grizzlies won on Tuesday edition. My name is Keith Parrish. I went to the Grizzlies game, the victory against the Washington Wizards on Tuesday. I came home on Wednesday. The Grizzlies lost to the Hornets on Wednesday. So on today's episode, I will talk about both games. I'll also talk about the imminent return of Desmond Bane. Before we get there, just a word from Underdog Fantasy. Underdog Fantasy offers unique fantasy gaming options for cash, and their new Pick'em Champions game is now legal in Tennessee. So if you want to try out Underdog Fantasy, you can use my promo code FBBF, and Underdog Fantasy will match your opening deposit up to $100. So again, give Underdog a try, use my promo code FBBF, or click the link in this episode's description. All right. Where to start with two games against two terrible teams, and the Grizzlies in both of them, I don't think you could say they put their best foot forward. There were some strange starting lineups, their 39th and 40th different starting lineups of the season. But let's start off, I guess, with the injury information. And that information is ahead of the game against the Hornets. Desmond Bane was upgraded to doubtful. So we had Jaren Jackson Jr., Vince Williams Jr., and Desmond Bane, our three best players right there, all doubtful for the Hornets game. None of them played, but this means that Desmond Bane's return is right around the corner. Before the game, Taylor Jenkins told the media that Desmond Bane is expected to come back in the next game or two. He also said that Brandon Clark would make his season debut later this month. All of this, I think it's very exciting. I mean, when I see Brandon Clark play basketball again, I think that's going to give me joy. Something that's been sorely missing over the last 12 months. Like basically last year when Brandon Clark got hurt, that was the end. I mean, that was where it all got terrible. Yes, the Steven Adams injury, it was bad, and we knew we were much worse after the Steven Adams injury, but there was always that sense that Steven Adams was coming back. It wasn't this, oh no, he's going to be out for a year and a half. We had no idea. We thought he was going to return. We thought he was going to be back for the playoffs, and we thought he was going to be back this year. The Brandon Clark thing was a torn Achilles, and that was, he's now gone. And of course, we didn't know how the playoffs would turn out last year, but they turned out very poorly. And then this year's been a nightmare. And then, of course, there was all the off-the-court stuff. So, you can really trace back, I think, our Grizzlies fan happiness with the Brandon Clark injury and say a lot of it went downhill from there. So, I'm super excited to see Brandon Clark back. I'm super excited to see Desmond Bane back. And there is still some conversation around that with the question, why are these guys coming back? People are focused on tanking. People are now looking at the Raptors, who have really tossed their hat in the tanking ring. You look at what the Grizzlies have done recently. You look at the lineups they played against the Wizards and the Hornets. The Grizzlies are tanking. You look at Jaren Jackson Jr.'s availability. I am honestly rather shocked that Jaren Jackson Jr. played the road game against the Thunder, where he was one of the only useful players we had available, and they ran him out there for the Thunder game. He played 3 quarters. We lost by 30. And then he does not play the 2 home games against the Wizards and the Hornets. And I guess we're supposed to believe Jaren Jackson Jr. is actually injured. But coincidentally, Jaren Jackson Jr.'s last 5 games that he's missed Well, 4 of them were against teams that have a worse record than us. By the way, reminder, there are only 5 teams with a worse record than the Grizzlies. So the last 4 games that Jaren has missed, a home game against the Hornets, a home game against the Wizards, and then 2 home games against the Trailblazers. That is suspicious. The previous game he missed before that, it was a game against the Nets, the team that at that point was the team right ahead of the Grizzlies in the standings. So Jaren has been playing games against teams with good records and coincidentally has been too hurt to play when they play a team right next to them in the Tankathon standings. Highly suspicious. You look at the players available. I mean, I think one of the main conversations around the hardcore Grizzlies fans right now is, are these players actually hurt? I mean, I don't know the answer. I know what I believe. But the Grizzlies playing, they had 3 available regular roster players against the Wizards. They had 6 guys run out to warm up initially. I'm at the game with my kids and we're having a pretty good time because it's our first NBA basketball game. But Jake LaRavia leads the Grizzlies out onto the court for the pregame warmups, the final pregame warmups, and there's 6 players. Never seen that. Eventually, I think Conchar came out and joined him, and then we eventually, I don't remember who the 8th was, but there were 8 players against the Wizards. There were 9 against the Hornets, and the players against the Hornets, the only regular roster players, Luke Kennard, John Conchar, Gigi Jackson, and Jake LaRavia. You had all these 2-way and 10-day guys. And you're playing lineups with basically all the 2-way guys and all the 10-day guys. And your main players are not playing a lot of minutes. I mean, Luke Kennard's playing 27 minutes a night. And again, I can argue that's just prudent because Luke Kennard, rather fragile. Not the guy you want to play 35 minutes a night. But Santi Aldama, some nights, he's playing 28 minutes. So I think what the Grizzlies are doing right now is they are actively tanking. They are, as an organization, not attempting to put their best foot forward. Now, they won against the Wizards. Honestly, shocking. Humiliating loss for the Wizards. The Wizards did not have a center in that game. Okay, no center. They had Kyle Kuzma starting at center. Trey Jemison responded with his career game. He had his career high in the first half. He finished with 24 points. He doubled his previous career high. But the Wizards had Kyle Kuzma and Deni Avdija and Tyus Jones and Jordan Poole and Corey Kispert and Bilal Coulibaly. These are kind of their regular guys. And they were down by 25 at halftime. I'm getting back to the argument about Desmond Bane and Brandon Clark playing. Sorry. But the Grizzlies had their biggest lead of the season. They were by 25 at halftime, had 67 points. I think that's the most points the Grizzlies have scored in a half this year. I'm realizing now I didn't look that up. But that's a lot of points for the Grizzlies. But the Grizzlies, I think right now, actively tanking, I think it's kind of gross. And they're doing it, obviously, because they want to maintain their draft position or their percentages of having the best pick possible. And now when you wrap in Desmond Bane and Brandon Clark coming back, you're saying, well, then if we're tanking, why are we bringing these guys back? I mean, for me, I just think it's important if your guys are healthy and want to play basketball to have them play basketball. I also think it's important to entertain your fans. I think it's important to win basketball games. I maintained that the Grizzlies tanking spot was secure. I was a little bit wrong on that. You can say very wrong on that. I misjudged what the Raptors would do. The Raptors have lost 5 straight. They're only a half game better than the Grizzlies right now. The Grizzlies right now sitting in the 6th worst record. The Raptors have the 7th worst record. I thought the Raptors would not do this. If the Raptors catch the Grizzlies, if they overtake the Grizzlies and have a worse record, the Raptors would still have a 54% chance at giving away their pick. If I worked for the Raptors, I would not have recommended let's tank because the odds, their best case scenario, again, we Grizzlies fans, again, likely not catching the Trailblazers. I've maintained that point for a while. Still, even though the Trailblazers won their last game, the Grizzlies lost their last game, it doesn't look like we can catch the Trailblazers. Raptors, I also don't think they can do it. So like it seems like the ceiling, the best case / worst case scenario for the Raptors is to have the 6th worst record. That means there's a 54% chance they give the Spurs the 7th, 8th, or 9th pick. I would not want those odds. But I didn't think the Raptors were going to tank. But the Raptors, maybe they're not, maybe they are. I mean, they have the injury to Scotty Barnes. They didn't choose to have that happen. Jakob Poeltl's hurt. They didn't choose for that to happen. But right now, the Grizzlies are neck and neck with the Raptors. And so you'd think, all right, it's important to lose these games. And you hope maybe the schedule will take care of itself. We go on a road trip. I think we're like 7 out of 8 are on the road after this Thunder game on Saturday. And so, again, going back to the Desmond Bane or Brandon Clark thing, you'd say, well, why would we risk these guys getting hurt? Why would we want to win basketball games? I view it, and this is not a position where I feel like there's a right or wrong answer. I think a lot of times I say things where I'm like, I believe this is true. I want to convince you why. This one, I think reasonable people can disagree on. Some people think it is more important to maximize your lottery odds. If it is just raising your overall, chance at a top 4 pick by a few percentage points, or, greatly increasing the odds that you pick 7th as opposed to 8th. You raise the floor of what your worst case scenario could be on lottery night. But, they don't think there's any benefit to having Gigi Jackson and Vince Williams Jr. and your young guys play alongside Desmond Bane and build chemistry. I believe, one, that is important. And I also I think it's more important to give some games that feel serious, games that have stakes. Like Gigi Jackson had a big game against the Hornets. He had 26 points. Gigi Jackson is scoring 25 points per game over the Grizzlies' last 3 games. These games have no stakes. I don't feel like this is helping Gigi that much. I would rather have Desmond Bane play and Brandon Clark play, and maybe you get a better effort from some of your opponents. And this might not happen. It might not happen regardless. All these games coming down the stretch, the Grizzlies' final 15 games, they all might feel a little bit meaningless, ridiculous, and so you won't have those opportunities where Gigi Jackson feels pressure or Vince Williams Jr. is like, hey, this feels a lot different than the games where I have a 40% usage. Like Desmond Bane's here, and this other team is trying really, really hard, and we have a chance to upset whoever it is. Like we can beat the Clippers or the Suns or whoever we're playing. Like I would hope for that chance to happen, and the Grizzlies would get some good reps that way. But even if none of that happens, for me, I look at basketball maybe in a different way than a lot of people. Like I look at basketball as in like, this is an experience and it's a year-over-year experience. And I look at a guy like Desmond Bane and I just wonder, like, how long is Desmond Bane going to be on the Grizzlies? Like, do we get 10 years of him or 12? Like, how long is Desmond Bane's career? How long does Desmond Bane play at an all-star level or near all-star level? We're talking about, again, if he doesn't have any serious injury, you hope, all right, maybe Desmond Bane will play 8 or 9 years at an all-star level. I don't want to give one of those years up, even if our record is terrible. I want to enjoy Desmond Bane for the next month. Like, as basketball fans, nothing is promised. The future is not promised. And so for me, I would rather see our guys play basketball. This is a year we have Brandon Clark and Desmond Bane. I enjoy watching them play basketball. My experience as a fan is increased when those guys play. If we drop from having a 37% chance of the top 4 pick to a 32% chance of the top 4 pick, I don't care. I would rather watch our team compete, try hard, and win basketball games. And if you haven't heard like my lottery reform plan, this is something I was big on when I was doing Fast Break Breakfast episodes. Like, I think it's obscene that the league still rewards teams for losing, that it increases their odds of winning. There's a professional women's hockey league where they have, in my mind, they fixed it. Like their thing that they're actually implementing is once your team is eliminated from the playoffs, every point you accrue in the standings, you get what they're calling draft order points. My system, I was calling them lottery points. But the team who gets the most draft order points in this hockey league gets the first pick. I wanted to keep the lottery. I still think maintain the flattened current lottery odds because that would, I think, negate some of the shenanigans. Like the idea of flattening the lottery odds was supposed to negate a lot of the shenanigans of tanking. It has negated some of them. Also, the play-in tournament for the NBA has negated some of them. But I still think this is a better idea. My system was the entire season, anytime you beat a team that has a record that's the same as yours or better, you get a lottery point. That way, the team with the most lottery points, that is then the lottery order standings, and then you still have the lottery. And I don't see any downside. The downside would be, what if a team lost a bunch of games on purpose to start the year, so then they had a worse record? All right, if they did that, they still have to win basketball games. And also, it's still way better than what we have now, which is losing on purpose. The reason I think the NBA couldn't do this thing about being eliminated from the playoffs is because of the play-in. It takes forever for a team to be eliminated from the play-in. But I think the lottery order should be set based on achieving a victory. Fans should not be conflicted about their best players coming back. Fans should not be conflicted about their team winning. It's absurd. It's a problem the NBA has still. But for me, and you can disagree with this, I want to see Desmond Bane play because I'm a fan of Desmond Bane. And I watch basketball for the wins. And does it help them, win a title? Like, is the best thing long-term to win a title for the Grizzlies to maximize their lottery chances? Yes. But guess what? The odds of winning a title are remote. And the idea of shutting down your guys to end the season to increase your lottery chances, for me, that is the same as saying, like, hey, we're not going to win a title this year. What's the point of it? Like, it's not a video game. We're not simming to the end of the season. We're not starting over. We're talking about months of our lives where we watch basketball. But this took a weird turn. Anyways, Desmond Bane is supposed to come back. I look forward to watching him play basketball. I hope Jaren and Desmond all play. I hope Marcus Smart comes back and plays. I hope Brandon Clark plays with all these guys. I want to see Vince Williams Jr., Desmond Bane, Marcus Smart, Brandon Clark, and Jaren Jackson Jr. play basketball together. I want to see that so bad. So my desire for that enjoyment is greater than my desire for maximizing my draft pick. Anyways, let's focus a little on some of these basketball games. So the Wizards game, the victory. Trey Jemison, 24 points. He was also part of an unbelievable offensive rebounding performance for the Grizzlies. With no center, the Wizards got out-rebounded by, 27? Trey only had 6 of those. Jordan Goodwin had 12. Jordan Goodwin started. He had a career-high 12 rebounds. He also racked up a bunch of other stats, 8 points, 7 assists, and now I'll say very quietly, 3 out of 12 from the field. But the Grizzlies smashed the Wizards on the glass. That was how they built up this big lead. You had Jake LaRavia grabbing offensive rebounds. Wenyen Gabriel, John Conchar. John Conchar got 10 rebounds. Also 3 assists, 2 blocks. I now whisper 1 out of 5 from the field. The Wizards win was also kind of funny because they could not score. The Grizzlies could not score in the fourth quarter. And I was super sensitive to this game because I've been taking my son to a lot of Nashville soccer games. He's 9 years old. He has it in his head every time he goes to a sporting event, the team loses. Now, technically, every game we go to for Nashville soccer, they don't lose, they tie. They always tie. A lot of times they don't even score. So he's like, I just want to see a win. And we were ahead by 25, and I'm like, I feel pretty good about this, but also, we could blow this. Because I'm seeing Wenyen Gabriel do one-on-one moves. There are no shot creators in this whole game. The only shot creators in the game, it's Santi Aldama and Luke Kennard and Gigi Jackson. And Luke Kennard doesn't really enjoy taking shots or creating shots. And I'm watching him, through 3 quarters, I'm thinking, Luke Kennard, he's kind of bad. If he has to dribble, it's ugly. I mean, he dribbled the ball out of bounds twice in this game. Credit to Luke, though. He did show up in a big way at the end of the game. Luke made 2 big clutch shots. One of them off a one-on-one move. He also had a bunch of assists, important assists down the stretch. Luke won the game with clutch plays. Luke had a season-high 8 assists. But I was watching this game with the big lead thinking we could still blow this because, we don't have players. We barely have NBA players. We're playing DeJon Giroux and Jake LaRavia and Trey Jemison and Wenyen Gabriel at the same time. And so when the Wizards start the second half on a big run and they cut in that lead, I'm getting a little bit nervous, mainly for my son. I want my son to see a victory. And then in the fourth quarter, the Grizzlies scored 2 points in the first 6.5 minutes of the fourth quarter. The Wizards outscored them 13-2 to make it like an actual tight, close game. And I'm sitting there at Taylor Jenkins kind of staring at him like, hey, could you put Santi Aldama and Luke Kennard in the game? I mean, I know Santi Aldama's jumpers were horrifically off. That's the one thing about my two in-person takeaways from this game. Maybe there's three. One being Luke Kennard can't get by anybody. Two was every Santi Aldama shot that wasn't in the paint was so far off the second it left his hand, you were like, oh no, that's nowhere close. The good takeaway was GG Jackson. His athleticism pops. And it's the first time I've seen him play outside of Summer League, and it was really cool to see. GG had 19 points off the bench. He had a scoreless fourth quarter, and he did not stop shooting. But the dunk, the alley-oop dunk where he's on his way down and barely gets it in was incredible. He had a block shot on an alley-oop where Jordan Poole thought he had an alley-oop. GG Jackson comes flying in and blocks it. So that stuff was awesome. But I got to say, I was nervous for this game. I was a little bit like wary of Santi and Luke not coming in until there were 6.5 minutes left in the fourth quarter. Like they both played under 30 minutes. And again, I don't think the team is trying to win that hard. I mean, I do. I believe they're actively trying to lose games. Not the players, of course, but the rotations, the players available, screams tanking. But the Grizzlies do pull out the victory thanks to the big plays down the stretch by Luke Kennard. Jake LaRavia had a pretty solid game. Got to the foul line 7 times, made all 7 of those. Jake scored 16 points off the bench. Santi finished with 11 points, 5 out of 14 from the field. This was also the return game for Tyus Jones, so I got to see the Tyus Jones tribute video. But then Tyus, unfortunately, he stunk up the joint. He had a really bad game. Also notable, and this can segue us into the Hornets game. Also notable from this game, as just a general NBA fan, as a general NBA obsessive, someone who watches so much NBA basketball, the referees called nothing in this game. And it was kind of cool. They didn't call anything. Like, there were so many collisions where they just let it play. And I was like, that seemed fine. I love that we're now calling this incidental contact. And you see this sometimes in the NBA when it's two terrible teams, two quote-unquote tanking teams playing each other, where like the refs don't call that many fouls. And sometimes teams stop taking it, into the paint. They stop driving. No, the Grizzlies had a lot of paint points. They had one of their best paint point games of the season. But they didn't call anything. I thought it was cool. The Hornets game, refs called nothing. The Hornets did not take a free throw in the first 3 quarters. And I don't think they were really missing that many calls. I mean, it's kind of funny. The refs were calling nothing except for the one John Conchar very clean steal that he had in the third quarter where the coaching staff, Taylor Jenkins, got to delay a game and then try to challenge it. You can't do that. So I enjoyed the fact that they weren't calling very many fouls. It made these games go by quickly, which was good. But the Hornets game was pretty ugly. This was, of course, their 40th starting lineup of the season. Scottie Pippen Jr. returned. So they started Pippen and Trey Jemison, both guys on 2-way deals, and then Luke Kennard, John Conchar, and GG Jackson. And then off the bench, you had 10-day guy DeJon Giroux, a.k.a. Deaky, 10-day guy Wenyen Gabriel, then Jake LaRavia, and Jordan Goodwin, who's on a 2-way deal. Now, the storylines from this game, GG Jackson scored a bunch of points, 26 points. This is his 3rd career start. He tied his career high with 6 threes. This was his 4th game of his rookie season where he's had 25 or more. That ties him with Juan Carlos Navarro and Shane Battier for the 6th most games for a rookie scoring 25 or more in Grizzlies franchise history. The only rookies to have more 25-point games, Jaren Jackson Jr., John Morant, Sharif Abdul-Rahim, OJ Mayo, and Pau Gasol. That, of course, is in Grizzlies franchise history. The Grizzlies turned the basketball over a ton in this one. They had 21 turnovers. The Grizzlies could not stop Vasilij Micic and Miles Bridges. Micic had a career high 25 points and made everything. And the Grizzlies defense was bad throughout the game. The Hornets are one of the worst offensive teams, along with the Grizzlies. The Hornets in their previous 10 games had averaged 98 points per game. They exploded for 111 points, and that basically all turnovers and points off of turnovers. By the way, the lowest 11-game scoring span for any team this season, which is, obviously an arbitrary stat. It's a tie between the Grizzlies in their last 11 games and the Hornets. So both of them averaging just under 99 points per game over their last 11. Now, by the way, a season-long updating of the stat, the Grizzlies now 0-28 when they fail to score 105 points. So that puts them at 23-16 when they score 105 or more. A reminder, the league scoring average is around 114, 115 points. So this was a pretty ugly game from the Grizzlies. I mean, Conchar, honestly, one of Conchar's better games of the season. So, Conchar gave you everything he could. G.G. Jackson gave you everything he could. Trey Jemison, honestly, really, really good. Again, he's put a lot on, I think, tape the last couple of games that he can be proud of. He followed up his career high 24 with the second highest scoring game of his career with 14 points. Got 6 more rebounds, also blocked 2 shots, a steal, and assist. The Conchar line, a season high 13 points. Attaway, Jitty. Way to get those shots up. Made 3 3-pointers, had 9 rebounds, 3 steals, and 4 assists. Luke scored 17, continued his hot 3-point shooting, was 4 out of 8 from the 3-point line. He is still second in the NBA in 3-point percentage for the season. Scottie Pippen Jr. got a career-high 10 assists, and I think Scottie's play has been very impressive. I was watching this game on TV, and they kept showing his dad, Scottie Pippen Sr. I'm not sure if the Grizzlies could have won this game if prime Scottie Pippen was out there. Maybe they could have. But Scottie Pippen Jr., I think, has really popped. He got a couple of steals. He had a nice dunk. He seems a cut above so far maybe the other 10-day and two-way players who have been playing for the Grizzlies this year. So a nice performance from Scottie Pippen Jr. The bench, I mean, you don't expect a lot from the bench when your bench is Dickie Giroux, Wenyen Gabriel, Jake LaRavia, and Jordan Goodwin, but they had some rough nights. Giroux and Gabriel combined to go 0 for 7. At least Dickie had 4 assists and 5 rebounds. I mean, Wenyen Gabriel, he's been pretty bad for the Grizzlies. He is an athletic energy big. His job, he's out there to rebound, dunk, and maybe take the random wide open 3-pointer. But he went 0 for 4 and turned the ball over 3 times. That's not okay for a guy who should be hanging out in the dunker spot. Jake LaRavia really struggled offensively, was just 2 out of 13 from the field. He had 5 points and 5 rebounds. He did get 3 steals. So his averages in the 11 games since he's been back from injury, Jake is averaging 11.5 points per game, 4.9 rebounds, 1.7 assists, 1.5 steals in 24 minutes per game. The problem is just the shooting splits. He's making 42% of his 2-pointers and 27% of his 3-pointers, and those splits are right in line with his career numbers, so not ideal. The only bench guy who I think performed maybe pretty well for you would be Jordan Goodwin, who once again fills up the box score, 12 points, 3 rebounds, 2 steals, 1 block, 1 assist, made a couple of threes. And I mean, this game, they were sort of in it, honestly. They cut it to, I want to say 4 or so in the second half, and they hung out somewhere around there. Maybe it was 6 points. They hung around there until the second unit got kind of lit up, and then once you finally put Luke Kennard and G.G. Jackson back in the fourth quarter, the Hornets had ripped off a 10-0 run, and you were down by 16. By the way, Santi did not play. I haven't said this yet. He did not play in the Hornets game. Do I believe he's hurt? No comment. Finally, a couple more stats. The Grizzlies got swept by the Hornets this year. Grizzlies PR lets us know that's the first time that's happened since the 2018-2019 season. The Grizzlies are now 2-10 on the second night of back-to-backs. The Grizzlies against the Hornets had 38 points in the paint. That is not a serious number. And here's my favorite stat right here. So Dickie Giroux, he only played 17 minutes against the Hornets, but he did pick up 5 rebounds to go with his 4 assists. Dickie, in 3 games, he's averaging 5.7 points per game, 6.7 rebounds, 5 assists, and 1.7 steals. And here is the fun fact. If you want to entertain or annoy your Grizzly friends, here's the trivia. Who leads the 2023-2024 Memphis Grizzlies in rebounds per game? That's right. Desmond Bane with his 6.7 rebounds per game. Of all 28 players who've played on the Grizzlies this year, Dickie Giroux leads the team in rebounds per game. Second place, Bismack Biyombo at 6.4. And then there is a 4-way tie for third. There might be like hundredths separating these averages, but I didn't check them. Tied for third, Ja Morant, Jaren Jackson Jr., Vince Williams Jr., and Santi Aldama. They all average 5.6 rebounds per game. Right now, alone in first place, Dickie Desmond Bane. All right, the Grizzlies play on Saturday against the Thunder. The thing we're looking forward to is, are Desmond Bane, Jaren Jackson Jr., and Vince Williams Jr. all actually going to suit up and play? I certainly hope so. If you don't, that's fine. To each their own. Anyways, thanks everybody for listening to this episode. I deeply appreciate everybody who supports the Patreon channel. If you want to get some exclusive bonus content, if you want to join the Grits and Grinds Slack channel, where I give my unfiltered live thoughts on the players that I watch in real time, you can do all of that at patreon.com/fastbreakbreakfast. All right. I hope you guys have a great Thursday. I will talk to you soon. Go Grizz.